Hey, that's mine. I stole that one. Well, I had two. Victor stole one. That's cool.
Hey, where's
We moved to. Sarah, are we on? I don't think I'm on. Am I on? I'm not on. How about now? My button is on. How about now? Yeah? No?
Testing.
hello?
Nope.
You can shut that. Turn it off and on again.
Who hacked the system?
Well, this
Whoa,
is
whoa,
not
whoa, whoa,
right.
whoa.
What about this microphone until we can figure it out? Testing, testing.
Microphones right now. So while we try and get those set back up, I'll speak loudly. Sheriff, how are we doing in the back? Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. Well done, Sheriff, thank you. For the next item on the agenda, we'd like to start with an invocation by Reverend Jimmy Keston, but I don't see Jimmy here today. So we're going to call on City Councilman from Laverican, Darren Prince, if he'd be willing to give us an invocation to the meeting. City Councilman-elect Darren Prince. Please, and speak loudly.
Our Father in heaven, we thank you this day that we could be here and discuss these issues. Please guide us in our, please guide these leaders in their decisions. We're thankful for all that does for us. We're thankful for this beautiful land that we live in. Please ask that we can be open to each other and live together in cities of Jesus Christ.
Thank you, Darren. We'll now have a Pledge of Allegiance led by Chief Master Sergeant Stephen Byrd from the Utah Air National Guard.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I might just acknowledge Master Sergeant Stephen Byrd, his service, but he continues to serve. He happens to be my neighbor over there. And like wreaths around America and just over and over again, just a great guy. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but can you continue to use your mics because it is streaming and they can hear it through the stream, so until we get it fixed in here. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm going to have to yell into this thing.
Yes, you are.
So everybody online, I'm sorry. 'Cause I'm put your earphones out. But that's for the people in the back can still hear us. We'd like to start with the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a means of expediting the consideration of routine matters. If the commissioner requests that items be removed from the consent agenda, those items are placed at the beginning of the regular agenda. Other than requests to remove items, the motion to approve the items on the consent agenda is not debatable.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda consisting of the following items. A, consideration of auditor-approved claims for payments for November 6, 2023 through December 19th, 2023. B, consideration of commission meeting minutes of December 5th, 2023. C, consideration of administrative adjustments, real property. D, consideration of administrative adjustments, personal property. E, acknowledgement of adoption of ordinance number 2023-1242-0 and 2023-1243-0, published on Sunday, December 10th, 2023. F, consideration of capital improvement list, CIP 2024 one-year action plan. Item G is consideration of final plat map, applicant is Thorogood. And H, consideration of public defender contracts for 2024, and that is my motion.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second on the consideration of the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving to the regular agenda items. Item number 1 is a consideration of selection of commission chairman for 2024. Now, that's me. This is our last commission meeting for the year. I've been the chairman. This is what the chairman gets to do. It's really fun. That's about the end of it, and they get to read the agenda. It's been an honor of my lifetime. And I will relinquish that and move that Commissioner, since we just rotate every year, I move that Commissioner Gil Almquist is the chairman for the year of 2024.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman, and just acknowledge your great services as chairman throughout the year, bringing peace to the realm. Thank you.
Amen.
Yeah, okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Congratulations, Chairman-elect.
Happy to do it.
Yes. Item number 2 is the presentation by Deputy Mitten and Scout. Deputy, come on up. And our esteemed Sheriff, Nate Brooksby. I'm going to kind of combine 2 and 3, if that's okay?
Yes.
I'm just going to go over the stats real quick, and then we'll do the introduction. So, from October 16th to December 18th, we got a total of 14 search and rescue calls. That's a total of 137. That's a pretty good number, actually, for us. We've been in the 170s before, so we appreciate the lower numbers. 9 of those were in-county residents, 2 were out of county, and 5 were like international or out of Utah. We had a lost hiker at the Vortex, 28 man-hours went to that, 42-year-old male near the Vortex was lost. Search and rescue ended up locating him and bringing him out safely. 1 injured hiker in Red Cliffs Reserve, possible broken leg. We ended up using Star 8. So they've been rotating birds. It's either Star 8 or Star 9, depending on which helicopter is down here. But they've been phenomenal as far as reducing our man hours and the risk to injuries to our volunteers. So they were able to hoist the victim out, and they were checked by medical back at Incident Command. Injured hiker in Snow Canyon, 53-year-old with an injured ankle. We ended up using UHP chopper again on that one to end up getting her off the mountain. We assisted St. George Police Department with a missing juvenile. So sometimes we get called to urban areas to help local law enforcement on Commissioner Iverson's playing a trick on me. So anyways, so our ground teams were called out. Oftentimes they use side-by-sides and they use a grid system for searching areas. Eventually we located the juvenile and he was reunited with his parents. We had one southwest of Enterprise where a 79-year-old, an 81-year-old, and a 79-year-old had been stranded in their vehicle overnight. They had to hike about 1.5 miles just to get cell service. Once they called 911, that gives us an exact GPS coordinate to be able to locate them, so we were able to get them checked out safely. The next thing is about 6 months ago, Sergeant Cashin called me and said, hey, Deputy Mitten's got an idea. He wants to look at getting a canine for search and rescue. I'm like, well, we've got 2 dogs already. They're patrol and drug dogs, right? So the idea was this one would be dedicated to search and rescue, a cadaver and human tracking dog. So about 2 months went by. Deputy Mitten submitted a proposal. Looks great. He said about 46%, I think, was the number, just over 40% of all the previous calls that year. He concluded that they could have utilized a canine in like 46% of those calls. And then it was to the money. I said, okay, Daryl, this sounds good. Let's look at maybe proposing it for our budget for next year. About a month goes by, Sergeant Cashin says, Sheriff, if I get the money, can we get a dog this year? And I said, yeah, if you can get the money, we'll get a dog this year. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's on, hey. Oh, echo? Okay, it's not a natural echo. So Sergeant Cashin reached out to a group that's been really generous to us over the years with donations. So I'd like to ask, I think we've got 4 individuals from the Dixie Elks Charitable Foundation. If you guys would mind coming up. And then Sergeant Cashin, Deputy Mitten, Lieutenant Croft. So the foundation ended up donating $15,000, which covered the cost of the dog and all of Deputy Mitten's training. He just recently finished the cadaver portion of that, and currently our newest member of Search and Rescue, Canine Scout, good-looking dog, the only cadaver certified, state certified dog in the state currently. The second portion, he'll be working on the human tracking side of it, whether it's a missing person or something like that. He'll be able to do that training locally, just here in Washington County. So he has been spending quite a lot of time in Salt Lake at the academy to get that initial certification. So we just want to really thank the Dixie Elks
Sheriff, will
Charitable
you mention
Foundation.
just how much training the dog has to have, and then also that how much work it takes for the sergeant to handle the dog?
So our canines, they're just to keep up on the skills. They're training at like every Tuesday is a common training day. So they're training like 8 to 10 hours a day, four times a month. I know our patrol dogs initial certification is about 500 hours. Is that in line with the tracking side of it? About the same. So about 500 hours initial training and then ongoing. So another unique thing is all 3 of our canines, they live at the employee's home.
Yep.
We don't have a kennel. Some big cities that run canine programs have kennels where the handler will drop them off at the end of every shift and have caregivers there. But these canines basically become part of their family, right?
Yep.
Playing with their kids, and they spend a lot more time with their canines than they do their own family. So.
Oh,
We just
fantastic.
want to say thank you. You guys want to come up for
Yeah,
a photo?
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Coincidentally, the kennel that we bought him from had already been doing some initial like behavioral training. They had named him Scout, and we just thought it was fitting to give the name Scout for Search and Rescue dog, right? We're trying to look at Lori, Nicole. Thank you. Deputy Scout is just a little bit better behaved than the last time we saw him. He's a little calmer right now.
Me or him? Oh, okay. He just got done doing some training, so he's a little tired.
He's a little tired.
It worked out perfect.
Well, and thank you to the Elks Foundation. That's amazing for the help, and anybody who gets lost is going to be very grateful for them.
So true.
And Sergeant Cashin, thanks for the idea and for making it happen.
Yep, one find. Thank you.
Oh, I don't think I did.
Thank you. All right, item number 3 was taken care of already by the sheriff, so we'll go to item number 4, which is presentation of the 2023 fraud risk assessment. Ryan Sullivan from our clerk auditor's office.
Good afternoon. The clerk auditor's office is required to perform an annual financial fraud risk assessment for Washington County. The analysis was conducted over the areas of the organization where there is a potential for fraud as they pertain to the financial activities of Washington County. Conducting comprehensive fraud assessments can help your organization better identify vulnerabilities, detect fraud earlier, and strengthen overall risk exposure. I'm happy to report that Washington County scored 375 out of a possible 395 points, which indicates a very low risk level. So we were happy that our new recruit got us some extra points on there. You get some extra points if you're a CPA, and our Chief Deputy Auditor, Luke Peck, got us a few extra points, so.
Good job, Luke.
Good job.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other questions for Ryan?
Do we accept it, or is it just a presentation?
We win.
As it is a presentation.
I think it's just a presentation, so thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, appreciate you.
I'd like to know that our fraud risk is very low. Item number 5 is consideration of purchase requests. Ray Boyer from the clerk auditor's office.
I don't have very many, thank goodness. The first one we have here is for our building maintenance department. Earlier this year, we had to replace a sewer grinder out of the jail. This is the auger that goes with that sewer grinder. It also failed eventually, so we need to replace that now. And this is for $43,777. The next one is, it's kind of for the whole county, but the commission requested this, but we needed, for the parking garage, additional security and software. This cost includes labor, installation, testing, programming, and licenses for $23,973.90. The next one is for Legacy Park. This is for replacement roping boxes and roping chutes. This includes the panels and all the latches, hardware, all the good stuff that goes with it. This is for $42,089.84. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the distributor waived the shipping fees, so we save money there.
Oh, thank you.
The next one is for the sheriff's office. They came across a really good deal to be able to get some license plate cameras. This vendor we use quite often was having a 2-for-1 sale. We were able to get 2 cameras for the price of 1, and able to use the liquor and beer expenses that we get from the state for $19,821. And unless there's any questions, that is all.
Thank you, Ray.
Great. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the purchase request as presented.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Ray.
Thank
One of
you.
your shortest lists in a while.
Yeah.
Item number 6 is consideration of ordinance number 2023-1244-0, an ordinance rezoning a certain portion of Washington County near Vail from the open space transition 20 zone, 20 acre minimum lot size, to the A5, which is an agricultural 5 acre minimum lot size zone, and a certain portion of Washington County near Vail from the RE40, which is 40,000 square foot minimum lot size zone, to the A5 zone, hereinafter fully described in this ordinance. Scott.
Yes, Commissioners, I'll end up kind of going through 6 and 7 together, but they will need separate motions. Anyone that's been to Brookside knows that there's some topography challenges in that area. The Brookside Summer Home subdivision was approved in 1965, and that besides the topography, they have access easements, kind of floating access easements over and across, and some people between some property owners, between the waterways, the slope, and the number of roads that go across their property, many of the lot, or some of the lots wouldn't even be buildable. And so we've always tried to work with the residents and property owners to clean things up a little bit as opportunity arises. What we have is the property owner who owned, yes, Lot 2 in Brookside Summer Homes, and also this larger piece that you can see on the north side of Wells Fargo. I'll step back a second too. There were some lots in this subdivision that technically didn't have street frontage. And so people are just driving across other individuals' lots. And so incremental improvements is what we were telling the Planning Commission. There is this large plot of land, and the applicant wanted to combine what was Lot 2 with the north portion of this property, create a 6-acre parcel or lot. And so to do that, it would be an amended and extended plat, because this property wasn't included in the original Brookside Summer Homes subdivision. It's an extended. And then what ended up happening is, as the parcel lines were adjusted, there are other parcels, and you can read about it in the staff report. Some individuals ended up getting more frontage, or frontage that they didn't have before. And with this, we are also getting dedication of a portion of Wells Fargo Drive, which is beneficial to the county and its residents. You can see that there are 2 parcels that are in the purple. They'll both be zoned A5. The parcel that's on the south side of Wells Fargo requires an alternative system for septic. And then the remaining area that's in the RE40 is just the other area, the other portions of the project, as things have been moved around, that will be in the RE40 zone. And so the Planning Commission held the properly scheduled public hearing and took comments. After discussion, they recommended approval of both the amended plat and the zone change. Typically, an amended plat or a final plat goes on the County Commission's consent calendar, but because we need the zone change to happen before you could approve the amended plat, it is put on the regular agenda for a motion. And so there are 2 motions. One would be for the approval of the proposed zone change from the OST 20 zone and the RE40 zone to the A5 zone and RE40 zone. And then approval of the amended and extended plat.
Very good. Well, thank you, Scott. It's going to be a while to finally fix all the kind of mistakes. I mean, it was a paper lot subdivision, I assume, back in the day, and then, but anyway, little by little, we get it kind of organized and cleaned up. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt item 6, which is ordinance 2023-1244-0, and with that very long title that you very eloquently read into the record already. That is my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 7 is consideration, as Scott already talked about, of an amended and extended plat related to ordinance number 1223-1244-0 that we just passed in Brookside Summer Homes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve that amended and extended plat in ordinance 2023-1244-0 in Brookside Summer Homes.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 8 is consideration of ordinance number 2023-1245-0, an ordinance creating the scenic byway overlay zone along State Route 9, the designated Zion Scenic Byway, and adopting Scenic Byway Overlay Zone zoning regulations as Title 10, Chapter 30 in Washington County, Utah. Scott.
Yes, Commissioners, as you are aware, and those in the audience, Washington County is one of the fastest growing regions in the country, and with that comes a lot of development pressure. We have had proposals in different areas of the county, but right now we're focusing on the SR9 scenic byway area. We've had individuals coming in and proposing hotels, water parks, Ferris wheels, alpine slides. All of those could end up being iconic, but maybe not the most appropriate thing to have along that corridor. We have some images there. Yes, the views from a Ferris wheel would be spectacular along the corridor, but is it appropriate for a Ferris wheel to be on the scenic byway? And so what we've done, you may remember that we, about a year ago, the county, working with the residents in Pine Valley, created the Pine Valley Overlay Zone. And it was a way to, general plans are recommending documents, and by doing an overlay zone was a way for the residents to have a little bit more assurance of what they wanted there, and a little bit more say in what their town ended up looking like when they grow up. And with that, we're doing this with the scenic byway. The SR9 road is nationally designated as a scenic byway. There's been a lot of effort by the communities and stakeholders in this area to create the scenic byway. We're wanting to still encourage economic growth and development along the corridor, but we want it to be appropriate growth, and we don't want it to be out of place. We mentioned in the ordinance, you know, similar to the Ferris wheel, we have the lighthouse up in Cedar City. Yes, it's iconic, everyone knows about it, but when in context, it's kind of silly to have a lighthouse in the middle of the high desert.
For all those ships.
Yeah.
They're going tonight.
So what we have done, and just for the record, we have this area highlighted on the map, is called out as the Scenic Byway Overlay Zone. So this would be a zone on top of the already existing zones. The county, as far as land use, does not have any jurisdiction over the incorporated municipalities and towns along there, and so we're not demanding or pushing our guidelines and requirements on these communities. But what we are wanting to make sure is that everything happens in an orderly manner and an appropriate manner. We have, there's some guidelines in there talking about cuts and fills, scarring of hillsides. We have just right out this window here an example of some damage that was done back in the 80s. I'd like to say that was 20 years ago, but it was a lot longer. But that cannot be repaired. And one of the other things that we have in our region is if we were in other parts of the country, as development happens, it would be hidden behind vegetation if we were up in the Northwest or in South Carolina. But anything that happens and everyone can see it. So we tried to find a balance. I'll just quickly read the purpose, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. The purpose of these regulations is to enhance the economic viability of the Scenic Byway Overlay Zone through preserving and enhancing the natural environment and enhancing aesthetic protections for development in the zone. The Zion Park Scenic Byway, SR9, is an iconic entrance to Zion National Park, where the natural Virgin River shoreline and the corridor, cliffs, and canyons carved by eons of river erosion interface with development. And so that is the purpose of the overlay, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Scott?
Well, There's a lot of detail here.
Yeah,
Detail makes me nervous sometimes.
yes.
I do recognize the sensitivity of this corridor, its residents, just kind of the economic driver. I mean, people come, 6 million people a year, 5 million people a year, depending on who's counting, 4 million people a year, pass through this corridor. So I recognize that, and also overlay zones, by their nature, they're meant to be a guiding document. So I think with the guidance of it, I'm comfortable with. I'm a little bit squeamish about the attention to detail, but I think that some of your goal, if I understood it, was to have kind of a one-stop inside of our code so that people could find out, for example, there's discussion here about water conservation. Well, we have another section of code that talks about that, but you kind of wanted to bring it here so it'd be easy to understand.
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, we've had some discussion, the code, we feel like we've been kind of Band-Aiding, putting Band-Aids on the code for years. And there has been some discussion about doing a code rewrite and cleaning everything up. With that, for instance, like a light in this scenic byway overlay zone, it talks about dark skies and lighting. Up till now, the county, until we did the overlay zone in Pine Valley, had no lighting standards. I'm a city guy, so I like lights, but at the same time, when you're on your way to Zion, or if there's a business along the corridor, you want people leaving that business to be able to see their car in the parking lot, but you also don't want the parking lot to look like Walmart parking lot.
Yeah.
And so, we're trying to find the balance between, making sure that it's not just a wall pack on the side of a building or big bright lights that cause light pollution, but that the lighting is sensitive to the area. Stargazing is a very popular thing, and so we're just trying to find a balance.
One level of detail that I'm trying to find the line, but it had to do with the number of cars.
187 to 193.
187.
Yes, one of the things we've had some discussion about, just the average daily trips that we put in there, and my recommendation would be that just a traffic study's done and that we follow what's talked about in the traffic study, so we could remove the number.
That makes sense.
Yeah. If we're gonna do some amendments here, any motion subject to the amendments proposed, if they pass, I would propose that we amend line 190 and 191 so that the density for the combined residential or commercial uses in the PD shall be acceptable to the county based on a traffic engineering study. Is that language?
Yeah, we could do that, and also point out, Commissioners, that there's an additional limitation that the PD use has a limitation of 75 units total. So that's also a restriction that would keep the trip count down without saying a number here. So,
Okay.
but yes, we could add language that says it's going to be based on the study.
Okay, and then remove
200.
the language that discusses an average daily traffic volume of 200 or less. Just that the traffic engineering study that's acceptable to the county.
So let's see, on a procedural note,
So I make that motion that we amend the ordinance with the language as stated.
okay,
Well, actually, Commissioner, it might be, I think if you'd like to do that, Commissioners, it might be the best if you finish your discussion on the ordinance, and then on the
Subject
motion
to
to
amendment.
approve,
Yeah.
you would make that in your motion.
okay.
Very well.
Now, I do have a question about that total units. Where did we come up with those numbers?
again, it's looking at and trying to balance, yes, there could be hotels, there are hotels along there, but, we want the hotel, to not be a big 4-story tall building. There's been some illustration that's in the code that, we want to make sure that it's not, that the hotel or the rooms, that it's not the prominent thing that you see. There was an image in there of a hotel on top of a hillside, and when that resort was built right there, it looks like something out of Russia, but that's here in the
It really
United
does, yeah.
States.
That's in the US?
Yes, that's here in the U.S. And
North
it was
Carolina.
after that was developed that the community then, there was great outcry, and they came in and said, we need to make sure this never happens again.
So you're saying that, within the corridor, there might be several projects, and but the goal of the overlay zone would be to encourage those to be smaller density, less impactful type projects.
Correct, yes.
So you might have a couple projects next to each other, but they wouldn't be the same project. There would have to be some
Or,
consideration.
yeah.
Okay, now there was some discussion about water features, and I know this kind of goes over to what I was already talking about, that some of the level of detail I haven't necessarily seen in overlay zones. But at the same time, if we're trying to be more efficient, make our codes more clear, I can kind of appreciate that level of detail. But and we're trying to balance between, being wise with water, and frankly, probably saying that in the desert and in this corridor, a water park might not be our first, something that would be,
Yeah.
that we'd
It's
want to do.
hot here. It would be
Yeah.
nice to have a water park in Washington County, but it may
Well,
not be
somebody who,
appropriate along that corridor.
has an appreciation for how little water we have.
Yeah.
And then recognizing how many gallons of potable water it would take to run a water park. I can kind of see it, but that language was pretty narrow. Do you have that line?
Commissioner, I think
Yeah.
you're looking at line 428.
428, okay. So could we look at softening maybe that verbiage so that,
Or striking it completely?
because it would be covered in another section under water.
I think that it would be appropriate to use language that says a man-made lake, pond, or stream or water feature that would closely mimic what's found there naturally would be acceptable. Versus what you're trying to get at is, we don't want a 50-foot tall water slide
Or a wave pool, yeah.
or something that isn't natural, but people up and down the corridor there, most likely, that have water rights or that have reuse claims, could build a pond that would most likely look like nature built it.
Yes.
And I think that was the goal, was to strike out the opportunity to have, or the desire for some, which you've already had requests for, tall, obviously man-made steel, plastic, fiberglass tubes, all of that. And in place of that, still enable somebody to have a natural-looking pond, man-made,
Yes.
and that would enhance the project or even enhance the look. For heaven's sakes, golf courses do that, and they become the homes to waterfowl and all sorts of, wildlife, and people think, wow, if there wasn't a golf course there, how'd that lake form?
Well, and the agricultural zones too
Sure.
also use water. So turning over to our crack attorney here,
That's you.
Devin Snow, I'm kind of focused on that word prohibited.
Yeah.
And is there a word that would just say something besides prohibited?
You could say discouraged. You could also, commissioners, if you're inclined to pass this ordinance, and this is your main problem, you could pass it without this section and then revisit this issue later, if that's if that's the direction. But yes, you could change that word to discouraged. That's one way of dealing with your concern.
Devin, though, I mean, if everything's gonna be in a PD, we have another chance to address this when the PD is proposed to the county, right?
That's true. For commercial developments that come in, you would have a chance to look at that. That's correct.
So it wouldn't be for residential, but it would be for commercial.
It would be for both
Okay, correct.
PD residential or PD commercial.
As long, okay. But not a single-family dwelling that I'm just doing on my own.
Yeah, if,
That's not a
for
PD.
instance, I mean, we're not going to make someone that owns a bunch of ag and they want to build a new home on their property. They don't have to go through a PD approval
Right.
process. They just get a building permit for a house.
Right. So that wouldn't have, this doesn't apply to them.
Correct.
Right, so we're only talking about somebody comes in to do a
New
large
development.
development of multiple homes or commercial.
Can I make 3-word changes that would allow it to stay in there, but I think get where we want? Okay?
Yeah.
So where line 428 reads, water features, just strike unless it is a, right? Simply say, man-made, mimicking natural lake, pond, or stream water features such as fountains, ponds, reflecting pools, other similar water features are allowed.
Okay.
But mimicking natural. And therefore, we're not gonna have a steel and plastic water
Hydro
park.
tube, yeah.
I mean, those 3 words, striking a few and adding the 3, get us where we want. It allows somebody to build a pond. It does not allow somebody to do something that isn't natural.
So say that again, Commissioner. So you would say man-made,
Mimicking
mimicking,
natural lakes, ponds, stream, water features such as fountains, pools, and other similar water features are allowed, period.
so they would be allowed unless there's some sort of a prohibition. So what you'd be looking for, if you're wanting to keep out the water parks or some irresponsible use, you'd need a prohibition there.
Yeah, water park, unnatural water park type structures are prohibited.
Yes, we could do that. So in your motion, if that's what you're inclined to do, commissioners, you can include that in the motion. But as I understand it then, you would say man-made mimicking lake, pond, or stream would be permitted? And any, what was the language, unnatural?
No, I said mimicking a natural lake,
Right.
pond, and then are allowed, period. And then you
Correct.
could say, man-made structures that don't incorporate, or, just something steel and plastic or whatever, are not allowed, are prohibited. You could just say water parks, man-made water parks that do not mimic the natural landscape are prohibited. Now, somebody could say, well, good, I'm gonna build Bear Mountain like in Disneyland. And somebody might say, well, there's your water slide, but it looks like a mountain. I don't know. You want us to define natural, but I think we can do that fairly obviously by saying that man-made, unnatural-looking structures are prohibited.
Yeah. I think that the best way forward, commissioners, to make sure that I have your intent in mind, would be, here are the options. You could pass it as written with this requirement removed, and then you revisit this specific issue at another
Okay.
date. Or you could table this tonight, give us a chance as your legal counsel to do our best to craft what you're talking about now, and bring it back to you, and then you'd have something in front of you could look at and say, we're comfortable with this language. I'm just not comfortable that sitting here.
You're right, wordsmithing
We
it
can
down.
craft
I'd rather strike
code.
428 and 429 than throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. I'd rather we remove that and we'll add it later.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Almquist, I think I'd support that because, yeah, really, we know what we don't want, but at the same time, when you think about, I was just thinking about a fountain in a courtyard, You wouldn't want to tell somebody they couldn't have a fountain in the courtyard because it's not natural. But at the same time, we know that we don't want, a big old 50-foot hydro slide up there, so.
Let's work on it later.
Okay, all right, so.
So I have some there's things in here, Scott, that I understand, and I think you may have gotten me there in your description and the intent. I get where this is just an overlay zone, but there's things in here that have nothing to do with a scenic byway. But you're trying to make a one-stop, somebody comes in to develop anything within this area, you can hand them this entire document and say, there's your guidelines, right?
Yeah, right now, it's,
Can I back that up a little bit? Because my fellow commissioners, we all have different assignments, and I've been able to witness some of the proposals that come before planning. So let me give some background on this. What we have in the past is we've had applicants come in, and they've had perhaps a basic shot at a zone or allowed uses, but then they come back once we've reviewed it and said, well, you didn't address the lighting, you didn't address the landscaping. And they say, well, where do I find that? And we say, well, it's in a different part of the code, or it's a different place. What we've been trying to do for the last 4 years is have somebody come in and say, okay, everything I need to know is right here. Because the criticism we receive is that they say, okay, well, I went by that portion and I did everything I was supposed to. Well, you missed this. Well, nobody told me about that. And we want to say that they're all experienced, but some of them don't hire planners. Some of them don't hire engineers. And so they're left on their own to try and develop their property in such a way that we'll approve it or that it fits within our codes or zone. And yet they keep coming back time after time, and then we get the reputation of either slowing them down. They feel like, well, you don't want it. That's why you keep leading me in another direction. But in this particular case, it is a one-stop shop. They get it all. So they hand that entire document over to their engineer, or they muddle through it with their child who's trying to get a degree from planning school and figure out what they're going to propose.
That'd be Scott Jr., I think.
Yeah, Scott Jr. And so that was the intent of maybe having more details in here than other sections of our planning and zoning code.
Would it not be, I get that point, Commissioner, and that's well taken. Is it not easier or just as easy-ish, Scott?
Ish.
If we were to pass the overlay zone from the scenic byway, and maybe this is just more procedural, right? But when we get to the landscaping, we want water-wise, water conservation across the county. So somebody that's going to develop something outside the byway is still going to have to look at, they don't get the one-stop shop, right? Because it's going to be, well, I've got to go to Title 10 and I've got to go somewhere else and I've
That's
got to.
Brookside.
So could we have a packet that here is your one-stop shop that pulls all of the relevant areas from various code that then we don't, it just seems odd that we have landscaping and I don't want the heavy hand of government talking about how many inches their mulch must be in a scenic byway. It seems like that's an odd place in a scenic byway to have that language.
yeah, I think right now it's almost like a placeholder as we have very diverse areas in our county. You know, a lot of the cities, and we'll be talking about it later, adopted landscaping codes encouraging people to plant trees. But because we don't have fire hydrants everywhere, people have to meet the urban wildland interface. And so if we have in our code, you need to plant trees, but then with the urban wildland interface code, we made people take out all these trees around their house. It's like, yeah, you have to take out those trees, but then before you get your C of O, you have to plant 2 new trees. And so, you know, we know along that corridor, just due to the proximity of the road, that we're not going to run into the same issues we would on top of Kolob or in Pine Valley as far as urban wildland interface. And so we put it in right here. Our proposal is put it in right now with the scenic byway overlay zone. As we look at, we've used the term living document often, but as we move forward with other changes, you know, I think it's very appropriate for us with lighting and landscaping that we have we could have it specific for certain areas or just call out that this applies in Pine Valley or this applies in Kolob, but we just have a landscape code. And then on our checklist in the future, when we modify the packet that we hand people, it says, see this section, see this section.
It might be even a little more confusing if you have somebody developing along the scenic byway, and then they want to go and do something in Vail. They might say, oh, well, I got to do the same thing there. Well, actually, the byway's a little different. Climate, like you said, interface. It may not cover the entire county exactly. I listened well to your comment earlier when you were thinking about that, and I thought, well, maybe this is a little unique up this area versus the rest of the county. So putting one blanket over the whole county may work for most things, but in this case, it may be a little different along SR 9.
But, and I get that. I'm just saying, is there a place in the county that we need anywhere to tell them how thick their mulch is? Is there a compelling reason on that, Scott, that the government needs to tell you how thick to mulch?
The compelling reason would be that we've dealt with individuals that have done, or projects that have been done, and they put a layer that the first wind, they put down a layer of chat that the first windstorm that comes up blows it away. And it functions as a weed barrier. A lot of the cities and municipalities, of course, they have stricter standards with landscaping, but I think the
Nicole, can we drop the screens a little bit? We're going to blind April.
So my question a little bit is, did this come from like some of the standards that are out there
It is.
to
Yes.
encourage water
It's a
conservation?
landscape standard.
Some of
Yeah.
the landscape
This coming from the
standards.
Water Conservancy District?
Water Conservancy District or other jurisdictions that are in this region.
Okay.
Okay. Devin, is it possible to do what I'm talking about later on? If we pass this now, can we come back and strip this out?
Yes,
And
you
make it
could.
more uniform, applicable to the entire county
You
for
could.
things that really don't have anything to do with a scenic byway, but that are wise use of, water or something else?
General.
That are general, without making it redundant, clunky code, because we've got it in 15 different places?
Yes, you could, commissioners, and further to Scott's point, I mean, right now, the county has different standards in different areas of the county. I think it would be a good long-term goal to tackle that and say, here's a uniform standard that applies everywhere. And then you would remove these sections from the overlay zone. That would be a good long-term goal, and yes, that change could be made.
I should say, day one, when we hired Victoria, we had a planning meeting, and we said, we're going to go through every single code, make sure that they jive together, make sure that it's understandable, make sure that there is a place somebody can go for all the information to develop their project. And then within a month, it was, oh, Victoria, we need you to do this. Oh, Victoria, by the way, we have that developing at Colab. Oh, by the way. So it's always been on the back burner simmering to do exactly that. And every time we think that we can go to the baseball game, somebody drags us to the football game. So I'm telling them the truth, is Victoria is slammed with extra hours and things like that. But that is our goal, to do just that. And maybe this will spur us on to, because Victoria doesn't say no to anyone. And so she's very busy. But let's make that a goal.
So I do think that should be our goal in this next year. So with that, even with a few reservations, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we adopt ordinance 2023-1245-0, an ordinance creating a scenic byway overlay zone along State Route 9 and designated Zion Scenic Byway, and adopting the SBOZ zoning regulations as Title 10, Chapter 30 in Washington County, Utah, with the amendments of striking lines 191, 192, and 193, and also striking the lines 428 and 429. And that is my motion.
In lines 190, 191, and 192, were you going to insert the language? Is your motion to insert the language to the density for the combined residential or commercial
Subject
uses
to.
in the PD shall generate a traffic engineering study acceptable to the county?
Yes, that was my motion. You stated my motion very well, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much, Scott.
And for the record, since some people say, well, did you talk to Rockville? Did you talk to Springdale? All the mayors and many council members have chimed in and have full support, Laverkin as well, of this intent.
Yeah.
Because their fear was, well, is this going to dictate what we have to do? But after they read it, they realized it was in harmony with their incorporated area goals as well. Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Item number 9 is consideration of ordinance number 2023-1246-0, an ordinance adopting and implementing revised regulations for landscaping and water conservation for developing land in Washington County, Utah. Seems a timely one to have next, Devin.
Yeah. Well, I see Scott up there. Did you want to
So,
address?
Scott, I've got Devin listed, but who's,
Hey, I'd be happy to let Devin talk
right.
about it. He's more eloquent than I am.
go for it, Scott.
Okay, so about a year and a half ago, Water Conservancy District adopted some landscape and water conservation standards, and each of the jurisdictions were encouraged to also adopt those standards, and it helps with, they offer the program for rebates, putting in water-wise landscaping, maybe removing some of the Kentucky bluegrass and putting more desert-wise plants. There were some changes that were made by the Water Conservancy District to better address so that everyone within the county could take part in that rebate program. And so what we have adjusted our code to mimic exactly what the Water Conservancy District has in their ordinance.
And this allows, by adopting this ordinance, it allows citizens within unincorporated areas to qualify for the rebate.
Correct.
I'd like to note that this does not mandate that anybody do anything with an existing home. You've got a garden, you've got trees, you've got
Correct.
fruit trees, lawn. There's no change, but it does allow, if you want to remove, if you're trying to look for ways to save water, and you wanted to remove something, it allows you to qualify for the rebate. And it talks about, we don't want a heat island, we don't want a bubble that comes from just barren ground. And so and the noxious weeds and all the other adverse effects of just clearing things. So we talk about, plants that are acceptable, that are, you need to still shade the ground, bushes, things like that would be better, drip irrigation, and just more water-wise use of the resource, the very scarce and limited resource we have here in Washington County called water.
Very good.
Yeah, we would be very hypocritical to have a different standard than the one proposed by the Water District when we encourage the Water District to get other municipalities to sign on. So based on that, I move that we approve item number 9, the ordinance number 2023-1246-0, adopting and implementing revised regulations for landscaping and water conservation for developing land in Washington County, Utah.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Item number 10 is consideration of ordinance number 2023-1247-0, an ordinance repealing and replacing Washington County Code Title I, Chapter 14, in order to define and designate the boundaries of election precincts in Washington County, State of Utah, in order to comply with state law regarding voter totals. Melanie Applenap.
Seems like we have a lot of long titles tonight.
So really long titles.
Yeah, just shorten them up just a little bit. All right. Well, occasionally, we do have to split precincts. So that's, of course, why we're here today. By statute, any precinct that has more than 1,250 registered voters needs to be split. And so, of course, our county keeps growing. There are more and more changes that we need to make. And the last time we actually presented precinct splits to you was during our redistricting back in 2022. So I thought, well, it's been a little while, so I actually feel good about the changes that we made then. But unfortunately, due to growth in some areas, we do need to make a few more changes. All right, so what you're seeing is an overview map up here. And I actually kind of want to start at the east side of the county and work over. And so we're going to start in Hurricane. And Hurricane has been a little hotbed of growth out there as well. And so we had a couple of precincts out there that were really, really close to that 1250. And in particular, Hurricane 2 had 1,214 registered voters. and the adjoining precincts next to them were over 1,000. So in making some changes, we decided that was a good place to go ahead and start. And so we actually took those 3 precincts. Now we can't cross a House or Senate boundary, so we have to stay within those boundaries. And so we found a way to create a new Hurricane 13 precinct. And it's actually works quite well, I believe, with the existing growth out there. We do have a natural split that we are taking advantage of course, with the river and things like that. But we also did a little changing in the way that we set them up, where instead of using kind of like generalized terms, we actually brought in lot lines in this section because of the potential for growth out there. So we wanted to make sure that they were very well defined. So, and that puts each one of those precincts a little over 700 registered voters right now. So we made a pretty good split that direction. And of course, we do expect more growth in that area. Okay, any questions on Hurricane? Okay. So now we'll head into Washington. Washington, we had to make 2 new precincts in the area. And so there is actually one that's closer to just off of Washington Dam Road. We took Washington 11, and they had quite a few registered voters. They had 1,352. So you talk about growth. So of course we had to split that one. So that one was a little bit more of a challenge, of course, with the spread out nature of some of the growth areas there. But we did take advantage of keeping the existing subdivisions together and made what we thought was a pretty good split right there, using, of course, natural features and, of course, lot boundaries as well. All right, and then in North Washington, up around the Buena Vista area, we had to create another precinct up there due to the housing boom in that area. And so we created Washington 20 in that area. And so we took parts of the Brio subdivision, tried to keep those as whole as possible, and tried to keep those communities together. Okay, questions? All right. All right, St. George. Surprise. We only had to make 1 precinct in St. George. That was a little strange for us. So in the St. George precinct, we took our St. George 18 precinct, which actually goes from the southern part of Bloomington Hills to the state line, and actually cut it in half. It was quite a large precinct to begin with, but obviously, naturally, there's the northern growth and then the southern growth with the subdivisions on that southern parkway. So we picked, of course, kind of a middle section line where we believe, we've got room on both areas to grow. But of course, that's where our new St. George 59 precinct is going to be, is the lower area as it gets to the St. George Parkway. All right, last but not least, Ivins City. Ivins City has also had some growth, especially in closer to the old Highway 91 area. And so we took Ivins 5, which had quite a few registered voters, and we split that and made some adjustments to the surrounding areas so that we had built in enough room in some of these in this new area for some growth as well. Our rule is to try, if we can't landlock a precinct in where there's no more growth that's going to happen, we want to make sure that we kind of keep those numbers a little bit low. And I think we've done pretty well in that regard. And so we did create a new Ivins precinct number 7 out there. Now, in the process of doing a few things, we did make a few minor adjustments. We did make a minor adjustment in Sun River, just because we had one that was really close. And so we did a minor adjustment boundary in there. We didn't create a new precinct. but we included more of the subdivision in one of the, took it out of one of the more higher areas out there. And so that unfortunately is going to make a change to a few voters. The rest of the changes that were made were either due to an annexation. Of course, we took in that Burgess annexation, things like that, and just some minor adjustments to make sure that we had our boundaries defined properly in statute.
Well, very good. Thank you, Melanie. It takes a lot of work to tweak, and it sounds easy what you just described, but it's a lot of work involved here to balance these precincts and make sure they all work. And it seems like this seems fairly soon after we just barely went through what was a fairly substantial redraw with 2020 and the census and the moving around of different Senate seats and House Senate seats, or state Senate and House seats, and so thank you. School district too, we had to move some school district in there.
Yes,
So.
these, of course, all these adjustments will go in to the
Very
state,
good.
Senate, local school, different boundaries as well.
Melanie,
Yeah.
you cite here in the ordinance number that you are in compliance with the Utah state requirements for election boundaries, et cetera. And in the third whereas, it says that you're required to have precincts that are modified to reflect state law.
Yes.
I know this may sound like an obvious question, but for the record, you pretty much have to follow state law in everything that deals with elections, right? So
Okay.
that could mean how you send out ballots, how you tabulate them, how you audit them, how you canvass them. All of those things are pretty much dictated by the legislature under state law. You couldn't just go rogue and say, you know, that makes so much more sense if everything's south of the river, but that's a precinct with 1,500. We're just going to ignore state law and leave it the way it is. You can't do that.
No, we cannot.
That's my point. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Melanie. And having sat in when I was first elected on the process of redoing the precincts, it is tedious.
Yeah.
Let's draw a loop and then, oh, is that how many? No, okay, let's do it again. No, is that how many? No, okay,
Yeah.
let's try it one more.
Thank
Okay.
goodness for Lisa and GIS. So
Yep.
she is amazing.
I
That's good.
sat there long enough and that was enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, very good. Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2023-1247-0, an ordinance repealing and replacing Washington County Code Title I, Chapter 14, in order to define and designate the boundaries of election precincts in Washington County, state of Utah, in order to comply with state law regarding voter totals. And that's my
Second.
motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 11 is a public hearing to open the 2023 Washington County budget.
Are we going to have a presentation prior to the?
We have the
open?
presentation, or we need to open it before the presentation, Devin?
I'll go ahead and open the well, you want to?
Ryan, are you prepared to
Ryan?
present on 2023?
Yeah, just a few words before public comment regarding amending the 2023 current budget. 1 year ago, you all voted on and passed the current 2023 final budget. At that time, the clerk auditor did their best analysis to come up with what our revenues and expenses would be. This is the process of where we open up the budget to get it balanced again. There are some revenues, additional revenues we received. There are some that we didn't receive that we anticipated, and vice versa on expenses. So this is a process of truing up the current budget. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that are in this amendment. Tracking revenues, mainly sales tax in this example, we try and be really conservative so that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot and rely on sales tax as heavily. Looking at last year, we're about 2 months behind on sales taxes that's reported from the tax commission. And looking at last year compared to where we are right now, which would be September's numbers, we don't have October's in yet, I'd call it flat. We're about 1.5% higher than we were last year, so I wouldn't really call that an increase. I'd say we're still pretty flat there. But we are going to amend the current numbers up that 1.5% that we know that we're going to receive. One thing to note in 2023 is our recording fees at the Washington County Recorder's Office are down significantly. And that is due to the current real estate market and mainly, I would say, interest rates. When interest rates were good, people were refinancing a lot, and every time you do that, it requires a new trust deed to be filed at the recorder's office. So we actually need to back down our revenue estimates for the recorder's office by $600,000. It's pretty significant. And we've made that adjustment in the 2024 budget. I don't foresee that it's going to change much from the trend we're seeing now. We had an unexpected election with Congressman Chris Stewart resigning that required us to hold a special election, so those were some extra costs that we incurred. Adjustments totaling more than $7 million for several tourism-related contributions were added to the budget. There were also over $6 million that we needed to amend to fulfill commitments for several construction projects, including this building that we're in right now, as well as the parking structure. And also the beginning, the first phase, I'd call it, for the interior remodel of the Boulevard building. Discussions have been had with the department heads and elected officials concerning the amending of the 2023 budget. And now that the adjustments have been made, the 2023 amended budget is back in balance and it's ready for approval. So do you have any questions for me before public comment?
No, that was a good summary.
Yeah.
So adjusting both revenue and expenses, this is a practice we do every year.
Basically,
So-
we're just looking for, you gotta get it back in to what it actually happened. We forecast the best we could, but nobody knows exactly what's gonna happen in the economy between our sales tax, like you talked about, the recording fees. If you have an adjustment, every family does this all the time as well. They may not realize they do it, but a kid breaks its arm, you have a blowout on a tire, you gotta buy a tire, you can budget for it in the year, but you're buying a tire now for the car, and you gotta reconcile those changes that you didn't expect.
I move we open the public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to go into public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. We're now in public hearing. Anybody who would like to make a comment regarding the 2023 budget as presented by our clerk auditor? Not all at once.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Seeing none, we have a motion to close the public hearing
I'll second that motion.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. We're now out of public hearing. Item number 12 is consideration of Resolution R 2023-3214, a resolution amending the Washington County budget for 2023 and adopting by reference a budget summary and analysis as presented by Ryan.
Well, I think Ryan's already done a great job at giving us a summary of some of the areas that would need to be adjusted. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution R-2023-3214, a resolution amending the Washington County budget for 2023 and adopting by reference a budget summary and analysis, and that's my motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, Ryan, for all your good work. Item number 13 is a public hearing to adopt the final 2024 Washington County budget. Ryan, you want to present on this one first?
Yeah, this has been a long time coming, 5 or 6 months working on this thing, and there's been a lot of participation and lots of eyes on this, so I'm pretty pleased with it and excited to have this night behind us. But in November, about a month ago, you all passed the preliminary or the tentative 2024 budget. Since then, we've had some more talks with elected officials and department heads to do our best guess for 2024. Hopefully, we're on track, but I just wanted to note some of the things that are in the 2024 budget. There is a 3.5% cost of living adjustment for all employees, except for the sheriff's office and the attorney's office are on a little different pay scale, so theirs was a little different than most county employees. We are taking over managing the Kane County Children's Justice Center in 2024, which it's not costing the county anymore. Those are all reimbursed, but we need to recognize those additional revenues and expenses that come in and out for that in our budget.
So you're saying it's a wash, but you have to account for it on paper.
Right.
Yep.
Another thing of note is that Washington County is taking full control over the Dixie Convention Center. Before we were partnered with the city of St. George. So again, that's going to show some additional revenues and expenses that we've had to put into our budget. $5 million of American Rescue Plan Act, or otherwise known as ARPA funds, have been allocated for use by the Washington County Water Conservancy District. The uses for ARPA funds are restricted, and one of those eligible ways that you can use it is for water infrastructure, so that was where this contribution came from. $15 million has been budgeted for the interior remodel of the Washington County Boulevard building that will host the federal and justice courts. And that was done with a lot of discussion among the U.S. commissioners, budget committee, and as well as outside our investment consultants of how to best do that. The easiest way would have been to bond. I don't know that that's very easy, but it would put a burden of debt on us and the citizens. And Washington County is in a really good spot that we could actually fund that interior model ourselves. So there's no additional tax increase in this proposed 2024 budget. It's just additional, or excuse me, the current revenue sources. There's no tax increase proposed. The other increase, which it's more of a budgeting tool, is in the Council of Governments, or we call it COG for short. Traditionally, we've always just budgeted on a trend of what has happened, but we thought it would be a better accounting practice to actually show in the budget what has been obligated in those funds. There's a lot of projects that have been obligated. The chances of them all being done in 2024 is pretty slim, but we wanted to show what monies have been earmarked for those projects. And for the public that doesn't know, the Council of Government exists to purchase land that for a cheaper, hopefully a cheaper amount for future development of like a roadway or other infrastructure needs. After all of these updates were in budget, we took a lot of time doing this. I again thank you as commissioners and all the department heads and our budget committee, our county administrator Nicole, my staff. I know that Camilla Hastings has spent a lot of time on some of these specific funds, and Luke Peck, he has been here a lot of late nights making this work. So we've actually had 2 former clerk auditors with eyes on this to give us some consultation, and I feel really good about it.
Ryan, can we talk a little bit about that, just for the public to know, whoever may be interested? Sometimes we get beat up on various things, and some people like to beat one drum over and over and over again. But this has actually been a remarkable process. The county is not immune to inflation the same way that every family in Washington County is not immune to inflation. We pay the same price at the gas pump that everybody else does for our patrol deputies as they patrol our streets and neighborhoods trying to keep us safe. Food costs that go up, 46% on some things, 16% on eggs, 23 or 27% on milk. We are mandated by law to provide meals for our inmates at the jail. Food costs go up, our costs go up as well. And so Could you speak a little bit, if everybody had gotten what they had requested for this year, and I don't think anybody was shooting for the moon. I mean, when the departments and the offices came back and said, this is what we need for next year, were we over or under budget?
We were significantly over. I believe we were close to $7 million over, so we had to go back to the drawing board and spend a lot of time relooking at it. a lot of
So
areas.
Ryan, what is one way that we could have just funded that $6.8 million? Could we have we would have to go to the taxpayers and say, hey, we need an additional $6.8 million, which means we're gonna go through truth and taxation and raise your taxes, right?
Correct.
Did we do that?
No.
How did we avoid raising the taxes on our taxpayers, Ryan?
We, a lot of different ways. We had to have a lot of meetings with department heads and trim a lot of things and get creative.
We got creative. We tightened our belts. We cut where we could. We took care of our people where we could because they feel that same pain. But I just want to applaud you and your staff. You got the direction from us. The budget committee worked heavily on this as well to say we need to take care of our people, and our people are also the constituents of Washington County. And they're hurting at the gas pump, they're hurting at the cash register, and we don't want to put an additional burden on them without absolutely needing it. And so when a family is over budget, they have to tighten. Hopefully they don't just put it on a credit card. They have to tighten their belts, and they have to cut, and they have to do all of the things that we just did. And it's not like, I asked you the question, I knew the answer, but it's not like we were $60,000 over. That's an easy, $6.8 million had to be cut, tightened, delayed to some future date. You know, we just can't afford that this year, which is exactly what our families do when they can't afford something. And I think the residents of Washington County need to know that their government is conservative, fiscally conservative, that we tightened our belts and we didn't. In 2024, we're not planning on putting, to get through 2024, we're not putting an additional tax on our tax burden on the backs of our residents. And that was not an easy thing, but it was important to do. And so I applaud you and Luke and Camille and your entire team and the budget committee and all of the department heads and the employees who really tried to say, how can we do more with less, or at least not more than we had last year?
Right.
So thank you for everything you did. That was a Herculean task.
Thank you.
Well, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we open for public hearing on the 2024 Washington County budget.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We're now in public hearing for the 2024 budget. Anybody want to make a comment on the 2024 budget as proposed? Seeing none?
I move that we close the public hearing.
I will second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 14 is consideration of Resolution R 2023-3215, a resolution adopting the Washington County budget for 2024 and adoption by reference, a summary and analysis thereof.
Before we proceed to this, I just want to thank our clerk auditor, Ryan. I mean, this is his first year as he came in. We know that there's been a lot of contention around elections. He not only handled that extremely well, but he also ran a special election for the congressional seat. Did all of that just excellently, and at the same time, as you already mentioned, this was not an easy budget year. This was a budget year that took a tremendous amount of work, and Ryan just rose to the occasion. I can't say enough. I mean, this is a thankless job, but he does it because he cares about our county and because he loves our county. And on elections, on budget, he is just stellar. I mean, you just can't say enough good about this. And I can see a little bit of relief, because this is kind of like having a child leave the house now. He's now raised this child and put this budget together, and he's done it in a way that really does, I believe, respect our employees. I think we've been able to meet their needs the best we can, and we've also been able to meet the needs of the public and stay out of debt and not have to go into raising taxes. So just great job to Ryan and the entire team at the clerk auditor's office. Just fantastic work.
Plus Ryan had to run for this office.
Yeah.
building up to all of this fun that he's had. I move that we approve.
That's a good way of putting it, building up to all the fun, yeah, I mean.
Move that we approve resolution R 2023-3215, adopting the Washington County budget for 2024, and by reference, a summary and analysis thereof.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Well done, Ryan. You can take a nap. Yeah, you know what? You should take Monday off.
Yeah.
Item number 15 is consideration of resolution R 2023-3216, a resolution approving the First Amendment to a professional services agreement with Mainline Engineering LLC to provide design services for the SR 18 multi-use trail from Vail to Central. Leslie Fonger.
Hello, we're getting more trails. It's fun. So we've been working with Mainline Engineering to design our new paved multi-use path from Vail to Central along Highway 18, along the east side of Highway 18. And we've finalized design and bidding, and this will amend our contract with Mainline Engineering to help us inspect and ensure that the quality of work as that trail is getting constructed is high and we get the product that we're going for.
I've seen the proposal, and Leslie's been great to work on trails, which is her assignment, and we appreciate that. And that doesn't happen with a wish, it takes work, so.
It's a lot of work, and this particular trail project has had a lot of coordination and hard work from myself and our Public Works Department, through Todd, and a lot of eyes and work into this, and we're excited to see it coming to fruition.
Yeah, well, it's great work, and UDOT's been there as well.
Yep.
And this will also improve some safety concerns up along there, as it's in the marathon route, and so a lot of people like to go up and train, they like to run. This will kind of get them off the most dangerous part of that route, kind of get them away, and
Yes.
provide a safe place for them to run
There's
as well.
certainly still more work we'd love to do along Highway 18, but between highway widening and the addition of this path, there are a lot more safe zones for bicycles, runners, and others on that highway.
And I think
So,
with this, we're able to do a little bit of improvement coming out of Brookside and make it a little more safe as well, right? So
yes.
it's part of this
Yes.
contract.
As the guy who gets to drive that and pass the runners and the cyclists all the time, this is a great addition for their safety.
Yes.
Some of them really like to own their half out of the middle of the road.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution R-2023-3216, resolution approving the First Amendment to a professional service agreement with Mainline Engineering LLC to provide design services for the SR-18 multiple-use trail from Vail to Central, and that's my motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 16, related, is consideration of resolution R 2023-3217, a resolution approving an award of bid and execution of a contract for the SR 18 multi-use path project.
So yeah, just adding on to this approves acceptance of, we went through our bid process, and Precision Excavating LLC is who we are proposing to award the bid to. So this approves awarding them the confirmation of the bid that they put in, and then we move on to formalizing the contract and giving them a start date.
Okay.
We were glad to see the bids come in, and there was a range. There were several closer, but obviously a known company, Precision, decided they can do it for this and willing to do all the checkoff points from the required documents. So based on that, I move that we approve Resolution 2023-3217, an award of bid and execution of a contract for the SR-18 multi-use path project. And approving the resolution doesn't mean, Devin, that we need to name the company, or do you want that named?
It's named in the resolution, I believe, when I read it.
That's enough?
Yeah.
They're named in.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, Leslie. Item number 17 is consideration of Resolution R 2023-3218, a resolution approving multiple venue operator agreement for the Southern Utah Shooting Sports Park. Susie Lafayette.
Hello, Commissioners. We're just asking for approval for these agreements. 4 of the 6 venues, we're asking for a 5-year agreement, and the other 2, we're asking for a 1-year agreement.
Which one are we asking for a 1-year agreement on?
Mountain Men and Archery,
Okay, very
Red Rock
good.
Bowman,
Yeah, that's right.
and they are aware of that. Red Rock is.
Okay. All right. Well, just for the record, some people might be watching, might not understand. This is a wonderful shooting sports park. It's right past the fairgrounds in Hurricane. If you turn off, they're in the Purgatory area. The county owns the park, but we also rely on our venues. So great volunteers and nonprofit clubs that run a great shotgun range. They run a great practical range. The public range is Red Cliffs, which is there. Run by hundreds, thousands of man hours. They raise money. They improve it. I'd encourage everybody to get familiar with it. You can join these clubs and shoot. You can walk on and shoot for a small fee. Just all that money goes back into the park. We also have a great archery range there. It's also run by a club, and we also have Mountain Man and Cowboy Action. So they're run by people who are passionate about their sports. So these resolutions are the county's contract and establishing that relationship with what we call venues.
Yeah.
But they're really the clubs that work for us. It is a great, it's comparable to what Vegas has down there, the Harry Reid Shooting Sports. I don't know what they call that park, but it's one of the best in the state, I'd say. And we're able to do it because of the thousands of hours of volunteers that people have. And Susie
Yeah, they have a lot of sweat
takes care of
equity
it,
there.
manages it from the county's point of view. Mr. Chairman, unless there's further comments, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution R-2023-3218, a resolution approving multiple venue operator agreements for Southern Utah Shooting Sports Park.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Susie, before you speak to this next item, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we table it. And I know now the reason why is that Todd Edwards is out, and I haven't had a chance to review these bids with him and get his feedback on them. And so would that be, we're really just talking about pushing it into January 6th.
So
or January,
we
first
did
part
have a
of January.
time frame because those bays needed to be done by the end of February, because Subs has a big match in April in which they take the rest of March into April to get ready for that event.
So when was the start date planned?
We were hoping after today we could award a contractor and they would begin within the next week, probably after the holiday, Christmas holiday, and begin work immediately. So that was the time frame. We put that in the scope of work on that RFP, that the contractor had to meet that time frame in February to get it done and completed.
How many bids? Do we have 3?
We have 3
We
bids.
received 3.
They're all good contractors, and I think you're going to recommend one of them.
Correct.
Our first commission meeting, Commissioner, is January 2nd of the new year. So if they weren't going to be doing work until the first of the year, it might not be as big of a deal as maybe what we're thinking right now, but
What about if we did it subject to engineer review?
Yeah, what is this? When you say they're going to
Well,
start?
my understanding is, once a decision has been approved, then the attorney's office has to draft an agreement between the county and the contractor. And Stephen told me it would take several days for that agreement to be made, and then all the necessary, do they require a deposit, 10%, 50%, and then also their scope of work and making sure that they can line out all of their equipment and all of their employees to come and do the work within that scope of time.
You've read all the
The
proposals?
proposals, I've looked at them as well as the selection committee has looked at them and scored them based off of the criteria in the RFP.
Who was on the selection committee?
The board from Southern Utah Practical Shooting,
But Todd Edwards hasn't reviewed them.
he has not, no. And then it was sent out to commissioners and the attorneys as well as the tourism office. Brittany and Chad also saw those
Have you
proposals.
notified the company that,
We have not. We
Okay.
have not
so you
told
don't know
anybody.
that they'd be ready to mobilize before the 2nd anyway?
No, but given the scope of work in the RFP, it was strongly suggested that it would begin work immediately once the awarded bid on the 19th.
But to coin Commissioner Iverson's frequently heard phrase, to push back a little bit, he and I both have been contractors, and we know that just hoping and wishing that on January the 3rd, assuming I have a signed contract and that it's been approved, that would be like the most nerve-wracking thing for a contractor to have to think, well, who is it? You know, which of these contestants are going to go on the cruise, you know? So they're all packed and ready to go, and then 2 of them are disappointed. It'd be almost better to let somebody know, hey, we want you to start on this date and to meet that deadline, because obviously you have some events that trigger. Is that okay if I say that? A lot of things are triggered at the shooting sports club.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that is
No
very good,
response.
very good.
I love it.
Very good.
Commissioner Snow just silent.
Mr. Snow, Chairman Snow is not going to fire back on that issue.
Not firing back, no, even though
Maybe if he had a Snickers bar.
yeah, he's kept his powder dry. Having said that, I would hope we could actually, despite Todd's influence, which would be awesome, I'd still like to make a decision.
Tonight.
Just based on having been a contractor and knowing that anticipation is very difficult to just gear up, boom.
It is true that like, it's going to take longer and I think Todd was involved. Now there's a little bit of a discussion about you ranked them.
They were ranked, yes, 1, 2, 3, based
That-
off of the criteria that was listed in that RFP.
Does that follow our, where's Stephen at? Stephen here.
That does follow our code. You can have, you can list certain factors that are going to be evaluated as part of the criteria for the selection. That is consistent.
Okay.
But by the way, commissioners, the selection committee is a recommending body though too. I mean, you can look at the
Sure.
proposals and say, thank you, you've done a lot of work here. We see it differently, or we're going to adopt your recommendation.
I thought the low bidder checked all the boxes. So,
But is that the recommendation? That might not be.
It is not the recommendation.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to weigh in? I'm kind of at a quandary. I totally see what Commissioner Almquist says. You know, we're at a critical time of year. I know, having been a contractor, this is a weird time of year. It seems like everything goes a little bit slower the last 2 weeks of the year, and then you're trying to gear up, you're trying to get your work calendared. And so it's important to know, especially since the county attorney's office is also going to need to review this. But at the same time, I would like to have one set of eyes on it that isn't mine and can maybe verify what the recommending body is telling me. And so that's just,
While our county engineer is gone, he is available a couple of days this week. We might be able to contact, that's what I'm saying, if we made it subject to engineer review, I think we can get in touch with him, because he talked about that before he left. He's on vacation, but
Available.
but I guess what we'd have to do, crack attorney, not an
Rank him.
attorney, but a very good attorney, we'd have to name the contractor and say subject to review, right?
Yes, so the motion would be subject to attorney review and getting a contract in place that is acceptable to both parties. And then number 2, subject to approval from the county engineer as well.
And if
County surveyor.
we did that, and the engineer came back and says, absolutely not, this company cannot possibly do this, then we're back to January 2nd, or do we say the second place? You see what I'm saying? The review. And in that case, then the county engineer is deciding who gets it, and not necessarily us, although we want the best job.
I would recommend that if that doesn't work out, either we can't agree to a document that we're both comfortable with, or the county engineer is saying that's not right, it would come back to you.
Okay.
Okay. If there's reservations, I understand the timeline on the shooting sports park. If there's reservations of a substantial dollar amount, then
I have no reservations at all. Like, I have no knowledge of any reason to have reservations, other than just having confidence that we have a great, public works director that probably knows all of these contractors, knows their strengths and weaknesses, and can maybe just give me the confidence, hey, this is the right decision to make. That's my only reservation. I know
I would like to you have his eyes on it as well. It is a substantial difference between the bids, and given the 2 holidays we've got in the coming, I don't know how much work is going to really happen anyway. So if you wanted to table it, or if you want to do subject to, and then we're right back to, if he agrees, we can move forward. If he doesn't, if he gives some pertinent information, then we're back to January 2nd. But we really haven't lost anything as opposed to tabling anyway, right?
well, if we do subject to, then the only possible flaw, or the only possible downside, would be if he came back and said, hey, hold on. And then there would be possibly a disrupted relationship with somebody that, we told him yes and then told him no. But outside of that, subject to really does resolve my concerns. It'll put the eyes of the county engineer / public works director on these bids, and just, reassure me. But,
I'm comfortable with that.
okay. Well then, is that your motion?
I move that we approve resolution R 2023-3219, awarding a bid proposal for the shooting range modifications at the Washington County Shooting Sports Park to, wait, hold on. Are we 18, right? I don't know, it's not listed.
Do you want me to tell you?
No, they
Yeah.
haven't.
Royalty Enterprises.
Contract. Not listed.
To Royalty Enterprises, subject to legal review and contract and review by review of the Public Works Department County Engineer.
Second.
A motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Susie. We'll try and speed that, and we understand the time crunch you're under.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioners.
The only risk is then Royalty comes back and says, no.
If who comes back?
If they come back and say, well, we thought we wanted to know sooner, but
Happens.
it happens, but I don't know that it will. They're a good company.
It seems cost of doing business sometimes.
Yeah.
Item number 19 is consideration of resolution R 2023-3220, a resolution approving an amendment to the agreement between Washington County and Heber Barney for food concession service at Legacy Park.
Yeah, just a slight change in our agreement to include catering and a percentage of catering. That's all it is. So we're just asking for that approval.
I'm glad we have a caterer out there. Is everything going well?
Yeah, and we are getting more and more events that want to do private events, and some of the other catering companies in town are unavailable, and so this allows for Heber to do catering on our property, and we still get a percentage of that.
Cool.
Mr. Chair,
Okay,
I make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve resolution R 2023-3220, approving an amendment to the agreement between Washington County and Heber Barney for food concession service at Legacy Park.
and I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Susie. Item number 20 is consideration of resolution R 2023-3221, a resolution approving the renewal of an independent contractor agreement to operate the Welcome Center at the Dixie Center.
Hello, Commissioners. Washington County took over the Welcome Center from the state of Utah beginning in January of 2022, contracting with Maxine Stringham to run the operations. The Welcome Center provides area information to visitors, especially those visiting the Dixie Center and visitors with oversized vehicles and electric vehicles. The visitation to the Welcome Center has steadily increased by 15% year over year, with 2023 currently averaging 124 daily visitors. This contract is a renewal between Washington County and Maxine Stringham to continue operations through 2024.
So has this contract traditionally been held between the contractor and WICA?
It was with the state of Utah
Oh, was it?
previous to us taking it over, yes.
Is this, I just can't remember approving this contract before. Is this new?
No, this will be the
Okay.
third year that we've done this.
And how long is the contract? How many?
Just
Just 1
January
year?
to
Okay.
December,
All
yeah.
right. I don't have a problem. I was just curious. Well, sounds pretty straightforward unless Jamie wants to run it.
Sure.
I'm going to take that as a no,
Oh, okay.
despite what she said, so.
All right, I will make a motion that we adopt resolution R-2023-3221, a resolution approving the renewal of an independent contractor agreement to operate the Welcome Center at the Dixie Center. And that person is listed as Maxine Stringham.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Item number 21 is consideration of resolution R 2023-3222, a resolution approving the renewal of an agreement between Greater Zion Convention and Tourism Office and Love Communications for marketing agency services. Sarah?
Commissioners, hello. This is indeed, as it says, we are renewing a contract with Love Communications, basically authorizing them to be our ad agency of record, to do our ad buy across all marketing avenues through this next year. Again, this is a repeat contract, very similar, same terms, same costs, etc.
Very good.
Do they do any analysis for you of the result of the marketing?
Yes, we get regular reporting. That's all part of the contract as well. You've seen some of that in TAP board
Yeah.
meetings and whatnot.
Yeah, I just wanted for the record them to know that we don't just put stuff out there without feedback.
No,
And
it's all carefully analyzed, and they look at that probably more than, I mean, I would call them a data
Right.
nerds, and they look at all of that weekly and analyze and make adjustments to ads and that kind of stuff to be responsible with those tourism dollars.
Well, and I think if I'm correct from understanding from you that they not only give you the feedback of what's working and what's not, but that would be very handy for a company to do that internally and say, oh yeah, we're doing a great job, right?
Exactly.
But rather, they go out and look at the market in general and get other feedback that's part of their analysis, not just their own internal.
Yeah, we've just made some adjustments even to our audiences and those kind of things of people that we are pursuing to get here. So they're constantly adjusting that. They do audience surveys and those kind of things to make us all knowledgeable of who's coming here, who's responsive to those ads, and all kinds of tracking metrics and everything too that we don't have access to on our own.
Right, and that's what makes it a better analysis.
Correct. And a valuable partner.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2023-3223, a resolution approving a professional services agreement between Washington County through the Greater Zion Convention and Tourism Office and Zartico Inc. for tourism data collection services.
That's
Yep,
that's the next
Sorry,
one.
that's 22. You're on
Oh,
21.
I'm sorry. Oh, I crossed it off because we had already talked about it. 2023-3222, resolution approving the renewal of an agreement between Greater Zion Convention and Tourism Office and Love Communications, yes, that's what you said, for marketing agency services. And we now have a motion ready for the.
Yes, we'll table that motion.
And I will second the second motion.
There we go. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Just trying to speed it
Aye.
up. Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 22 has been read by Commissioner Almquist, but is a resolution approving a professional services agreement between Washington County through the Greater Zion Convention and Tourism Office and Zartico Inc. for tourism data collection services. Sarah?
You got it. This is a new contract, and to Commissioner Almquist's point, we're constantly trying to learn more about our audiences and those kind of things. This Zardico tool is developed actually by someone who was originally working in the Utah Office of Tourism and has taken that data stuff to a whole new level. They are still a Utah company, but have been vetted by us to be that data collection service. They use a lot of cellular data and overlay it with all kinds of other data, including Visa View spending and others, credit card spending, plus airport data and everything else that we can throw at them. It paints a very good picture for us, or at least we're anticipating a very good picture of people coming to the area, where they're coming from, and then also what kind of economic impacts they are having. This will also allow us to drill into particular things such as the film industry and where the people that are working on filming are spending their money and how much they're spending, and we hope to also get some answers and clarity on other events around, so like our signature events, but also maybe some of the smaller events to really speak to our economic impact of those things. So
Now, is
all
this-
kinds of tools. at
Is
our
this the
disposal.
second year that we've approved this?
No, this is
First.
brand new.
Okay, this is the first year, okay.
I repeat my motion.
We have
And
a
I-
motion
And I second that motion.
and an eventual second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Item number 23 is consideration of Resolution R 2023-3224, resolution approving an extension to a land trade agreement in Confluence Park. I'm not seeing Cameron. Are you speaking to this, Deb?
Yes, I am, Commissioners. Last year, the county entered into an agreement to add about 20 acres of property in Confluence Park in exchange for about 1.5 acres of land. And as part of that agreement, certain processes with the state had to happen before it would be completed. And those processes are going to take a little bit more time, and this amendment would allow additional time to let those processes carry out until the end of 2024. Other than that, the exchange agreement would stay the same.
We're still, I was so excited. I saw this and I didn't read the fine print. I thought we were like actually approving this agreement. This has literally been on the table for so long. I'm excited that we're still making some headway, but you know, sometimes I thought the federal government was slow until I had to deal with this arm of DWR. And it is an interesting piece of property. It comes up off of the confluence. It's right into a subdivision. It is a piece of property that also needs to be there in order to connect the transportation and infrastructure for that end of Hurricane. The property that we're getting in trade for it is highly valuable from a biological standpoint down along the river. But to make this all work has been a lot of work.
Yeah,
I mean,
it has.
and it's like we've been pushing this same rock uphill 10 times. And so, but I'm excited to make a motion that we extend this agreement. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution R-2023-3224, resolution approving an extension to the land trade agreement in the Confluence Park. And I will look forward with happiness to finally getting this baby across the finish line.
Second.
We have we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I look forward to it as well. Item number 24 is consideration of Resolution R 2023-3225, a resolution approving an amendment to the agreements between Washington County and Schindler Elevator Corp. regarding existing county building elevators and adding 3 gearless traction elevators for new structures. Devin.
Commissioners, the county has several elevators across several buildings, and so the county has current agreements, maintenance agreements with Schindler to take care of those elevators. This agreement would add the elevators that are in this building and extend those existing maintenance and inspection contracts on the other elevators.
You know, elevators are a great thing, great invention. I don't know who invented them, but they're really not a very good thing if they don't work.
Yeah, just kind of a box.
Just kind of a box.
How have they been with maintaining the ones we have through this company? Have they been responsive? I know we've had some that have needed attention and...
I've heard only good things. Schindler has about 70,000 employees. I think they're one of the main elevator inspection and maintenance providers. So heard only good things.
Yep.
And one thing I've learned about elevators is that it's kind of like, well, I shouldn't say it. You know that Seinfeld episode with the guy that makes a really good soup, Soup Nazi? Yeah, you kind of just, you get really thankful for just having a good elevator company. And you don't ask too many questions because there's not very many of them to pick from, right?
It's like Schindler
Yeah.
Notice, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, we're lucky to have Schindler Lifts.
I'm not going to comment on that, but I will second that.
Ryan, you're laughing. We talked about this.
It's a late night.
This is a long meeting.
Yeah,
Maury,
we've been here for 2 hours. Maury, I hope
thank you,
they're
Maury,
paying
for
you
not laughing.
overtime for this.
Jason, you're laughing. Dang it. Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Item number 25 is consideration of Resolution R 2023-3226, a resolution appointing members to the Justice Court Nominating Commission. Victor.
Well, this is a great, very important when we actually have a vacancy in our justice court. And so I can remember I was a commissioner when Judge Reed was appointed. I came in at the last part of that, but I was really impressed with how thorough it was. And so this is a standing commission that we need there. And these two people have been really fantastic and willing to step up and fill again. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Michelle Mitchell and Jenny Jones to serve on the Washington County Justice Court Nominating Commission.
Second.
Motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 26 is consideration of Resolution R 2023-3227, a resolution appointing and reappointing board members to the Southwest Regional Response and Coordination Team. Jason Whipple. Been waiting all night just for this.
I apologize, I'm not really dressed for the occasion, but it's been a day of training. So you're all familiar with the Southwest Region team that we have. And it's more of a committee that handles the 5 counties in our region. As Washington County, we are kind of the administrators of the grant funding that we get through the Homeland Security grant money that we get every year. And so we kind of tackle that as a region versus putting that out to each individual city or each county in smaller portions. This allows us to be able to get bigger projects accomplished and do more for our counties and more for our ability to respond to hazmat, to terrorism, to security issues. So that's kind of what that committee does. It's been really, really good over the years with this main committee and then the subcommittees that we have. So it's been super useful and a very good use of the money that we do get. Occasionally we do have people that retire. We had Darren and Emily retire this last year, so we have to replace him, and I think we're going to replace him with Brad Esplin from St. George Fire, and then reappoint me and Lynn Excel from Hurricane. But we try to keep the board pretty balanced with all the counties have somebody on there, but we try to keep it balanced with law enforcement and fire so that we have a good use of that funding that goes out.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Very good.
I make the motion that we approve Resolution R 2023-3227, a resolution appointing and reappointing board members to the Southwest Regional Response and Coordination Team, namely Lynn Excel, Jason Whipple, and Brad Esplin.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 27 is consideration of Resolution R 2023-3228, a resolution providing for appointed board members to the Diamond Valley Special Service District. Devin.
Commissioners, this resolution would make formal what has been a practice of the commission, which was to make board appointments for the Diamond Valley Fire Special Service District. It wouldn't affect any of the current terms of the members of the district. This would just make it clear that as vacancies come up in the future, that'll be a commission decision after notice of vacancy is published, and then it would come to you for an appointment.
Okay.
I move to
Yep.
approve resolution number R 2023-3228, providing for an appointed board member of the Diamond Valley Fire Special Service District.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 20, I have 29.
No.
Did we remove one or is that
Um,
28? Item number 28 is consideration of resolution R 2023-3229, approving a contract for an appellate public defender in 2024. Nicole Felshaw.
Thank you, Chairman. As you are aware, the three of you are aware, the state requires the county to be responsible for indigent public defense within Washington County. And part of that requirement is to have an appellate public defender. That's a little bit different than a regular public defender, as it is required for them to be listed on the state listing as an approved appellate public defender. So they're very hard to come by. And what's before you today is we did find Andrew Fitzgerald. He's actually out of Moab, but we did find him that he would be willing to take on the contract, which is actually a very big responsibility. I'd say about 5 years ago, we had maybe 3 to 5 appeals. This year, we have about a total of 35 so far. So it has increased significantly. We don't see it going away. And we're just really grateful that he's willing to take on that task. So that's my recommendation before you today, is to approve that contract.
Okay, thank you, Nicole.
I wonder why there's so many more appeals.
Right, and it's become more complicated because sometimes people think, well, on appeal, they've already done all the legwork. It's just rehashing the same facts and figures. It's not that easy anymore.
Maybe we
And-
get the criminals to pick up more trash and then we don't have time.
Is that a motion?
Just kidding. Could we make that motion? Anybody who appeals has to go pick up more trash. Sorry. Anyway. No, I'm not sorry. Actually, I don't care. You know, yesterday was a bad day. We had some criminals stop by and try to rob a bank and stuff. I'm pretty sick of these people. I don't even want to give them an appeal attorney if it wasn't required by state law. All those attorneys up there. You know, the attorneys are making this country go. Just kidding.
Okay, so I'm going to make the motion that we approve resolution R 2023-3229, a resolution approving a contract for an appellate public defender in 2024 as presented by Nicole Felshaw, County Administrator.
I'm
Okay,
seconding.
I only want him to defend the innocent people.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item number 29 is consideration of resolution R 2023-3230, a resolution approving an amendment to the jail medical services agreement between Washington County and Dr. David
Grigla.
Grigla?
Yeah.
All right.
I move that we approve.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. With that, that is the last of our agenda items for the regular agenda, and so we will close our commission meeting and reconvene and open the meeting as the Municipal Building Authority. There we go, last time. And our only item on the agenda is the consideration of resolution R 2023-3231, a resolution of the Municipal Building Authority of Washington County approving the conveyance of real property to Northwestern Special Service District. Devin.
Thanks, Commissioners. How much time do I have?
Well, I just want to apologize for any derogatory comment I might have made about lawyers. Just kidding.
Okay, I'll be brief on this one, Commissioners. The Veo Fire Station was put in it was titled in the county's building authority, the municipal building authority, to facilitate bonding. That bond has been paid off now by the Northwest Special Service District, and so this resolution would authorize the building authority to deed that property to Northwestern Special Service District.
Okay.
All right.
Any
Mr.
kind
Chair.
of a motion?
Do you want to comment about, any buildings or people that live in them or?
I will say, Commissioners.
Asking Victor, but.
You were looking at me, though.
Yeah.
It's been a long 2 hours. Well, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution 2023-3231, a resolution of the Municipal Building Authority of Washington County approving the conveyance of real property to Northwestern Special Service District.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. With that, meetings are rebroadcast daily on TDS Cable's channel 22 and 108 at 10, 2, and 5:30. and are available on demand at youtube.com/community education channel. Wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we stand adjourned.